recently. I saw like an auction house, and they, I don't know. I was just looking at the paintings. I was like, none of them offer the same. What I used to call it when I painted this was eye sex. And the reason for that is because there's so many unique qualities to that painting that, to me, physically and visually, I experience the same sort of stimulating pleasure as being with a female. And I get that from really good art. Anyway, some of these paintings were valued at $50,000, and I rarely experience that same stimulus as I get from something like that. And that's how I paint my pictures, based on how my eyes feel, in a way. I also plan out everything. I plan out everything, I imagine everything, and I use my own philosophies, which I've never really told anybody, because you start telling people your philosophies and how you paint, people will, Van Gogh, his doctor was stealing his style and trying to paint pictures like Van Gogh, but play them off as Van Gogh's or something. What he did was disgusting. Anyway, so this picture, and it just gets me thinking, because I'm always curious. I'm like, what would people, if I put a reserve on this, say $10 million, which is more than a fair price for a masterpiece. And I do consider that a masterpiece, even though that is the first one I ever made. It might sound like I'm tooting my own nose here, but the truth is that artists don't get anything for the physical value that society creates. All they do is you look at these auctions and they just play off your art back and forth. And it's heartbreaking when you love something like this that I plan to look at every day till I die. I enjoy it every single day. I love that painting. It's my favorite painting that I've ever made. And I still have my first painting. I remember painting my first painting that I gave to my grandmother. And my grandmother kept it in her display case in the living room with her china. I think it was china. It was like crystal glassware and stuff. Crystals and glassware. It was crystalware and stuff. It was just a cabinet where she kept really fucking nice things. And there's my little watercolor that I did when I was, I think, 3, maybe 4, potentially 3. I painted one picture before this one, and that one wasn't an actual painting. I dipped my hamster's feet in watercolor and let it run across the paper, and just did that over and over again. And I think I did a little bit of just playing around with the color too. And so what is the next, however long I live, worth? And it's not just that, because I'm selling something, I would be selling something that matters more to me than my own life, as I've displayed. There was a forest fire coming, and I would not leave. I was going to leave my art, my music gear, anything. I was just going to burn to death with it. Anyway, that aside, what does it mean to society and the viewers? And I'm going to call it pre-interest. And that if this hangs on a wall in a museum for 300 years, and people accrue value economically 10% by generation, what is my painting really worth? I mean, are people going to keep wanting to see this? If my philosophy of art all pan out, why wouldn't people? I mean, if I visually get a stimulation from enjoying my paintings over generations, that value, I never get to see it, but it's recycled and put into employees of museums and restorers and people that are trying to understand me, though you're already alive when I'm alive. You have this record of me. And so, yeah, that's a fair price, $10 million, isn't it? if I wanted to get rid of that. So you give me $10 million, I go and buy a house, now I don't have my painting. What I'm going to give you is the value of today, because I am the artist, you aren't. So you don't deserve the value of my equitable and potential interest, right? So I am worth the $10 million of that painting. You get to pay what other people will auction it for and what they will pay today for it. Since I am not right now a solidified or recorded, I'm not in books and shit, right? So nobody's talking about me. They're not like, God damn, I'm an artist yet. That takes time to develop. So I will buy my painting back, say, for twice that price. You make a sizable profit margin. And now I get to enjoy my painting for the rest of my life, where the painting gets to go back to the museum that originally bought it from me. And so I get to have my house, and I get to have my painting on my wall that I get to enjoy every day until I die. That's the way it kind of should fucking work, right? I mean, it just breaks my heart to see the duality of purpose in such a exploitive manner that we need to torture artists so that we can use them for our own personal gain and what it is. And it's where people kind of become parasites, right? Anyway, what about my other ones? What are those worth? That one's pretty good. That one I hold in a higher stylic value because it has, I think I use 3 color tones for it instead of just 2. And what about that one? He kind of wears me out. Some days I love it. It depends on the lighting with that one. See, I painted these in a perfect room design for art. Northern light. It had an upper inlet for the light, and it had great lighting above that was designed for art. I mean, my teacher really knew what she was doing. So I painted that in high school. She was so hard to impress. Very difficult. She was a brilliant art teacher, though. She knew what effort you were putting into something, and she wanted to push your efforts so that you gave her your all. Then she would grade around critique, and she would embrace you as your style, but she would acknowledge something that was, like, to me, visually stimulating. She really liked that. She made an art expose and put my painting in the middle of it on the stage around with everybody else, and people offered to buy it. I think one time somebody offered me $50 for it. It took me 3 months to paint this thing every single day. I remember walking down the hall. I remember sitting around in class with people. I remember skipping lunch to work on it. It took a long time to paint that. Whether it took a long time. And it took me 3 months, roughly around 2 hours a day, I would say, working on it. And somebody wants to pay me $50 for something like that. For something that's going to outlive you. At that time, I valued it at $500. I said, if I were ever going to sell this, $500 right now would be the minimum. And the guy who approached me was an officer in town because they were interested in purchasing that painting. He comes up and he's very polite, and when I said 500, he didn't even scoff. He's just like, okay, well, but I'm not going to sell it. And he's like, are you sure? So obviously they were willing to pay that much. It's just, to me, remembering, carrying it down the hall as it slowly developed, sharing it with all my fellow students, and just to embrace this unique love that it takes in the duality of purpose is the paradox of an artist, is that we are making love on canvas that other people can see through your textures, into your hands, into your own brain, that they can also see stimulating through the picture itself. And that's also just what makes art so drawing, and why I developed the philosophy for three perspectives. And that correlates to this painting, but there's a lot of to it actually. But how I paint, that's how I paint, that's how I understand art. Walking through the Joslin Art Museum as a child from a very young age, just running around by myself, nobody cared. It was weird. And normally when a 6-year-old or 7-year-old's running around a museum, they like, where is your mother? And I'm like, no, but I never touched anything, you know, I just studied art. I did my whole life. And so that was 2017, I believe, if I remember right. Maybe 2018. Yeah, 2018. And so it's 14 years ago. To me now, I see that as a $500,000 painting. Why? Because of every single day I don't get tired of looking at it. That's reasonable value for that painting. Not to mention it's the first one, it's the most unique, and it's going to certainly draw enough people within my lifetime to pay itself off. It's going to be in a room, it's going to stand out like it always does, and it stands out. Okay, I have fucking eyeballs. Like, I understand. I'm not just toot my own horn here. It's unique, and it doesn't clash. It ain't gonna make a room full of other brilliant works of art look tacky. It might draw people at first. Eventually, then, you know, it's gonna be like that guy that threw paint at canvas, Jackson Pollock. Oh, I hate it. I hate it. But yet, of thrown paint works, I get a draw from Jackson Pollock more than other emulators. And that, based on per person, of how a painting can draw in a room and not overcompensate or distract or just not envelop the aura of an entire room displaying various works of art in a museum like the Joslin Art Museum has. This special smell to it. And there's one room where there's a painting that gives me the exact same sort of stimulus as that. It's called Pearl Endless. And that's by Moran. And that's my favorite landscape. Realist landscape painting. And so, all of this, I would rather be broke with my painting than be rich without it, is what I'm saying. That's why it matters to me. It's my life, and people have photographs of the things that they go out and do with their friends. That's not toot your own horn, right? I mean, you're celebrating these past experiences. It's just that I do it with paintings. I don't do it with photographs. I don't have pictures of me. I don't have pictures of me with people. That makes me feel creepy. I feel really strange when there are photographs of me. And I feel exactly like when people judge an artist for looking at their own paintings that they have on their own walls. I feel the same way about you with photographs of yourself and your friends on your own walls. That's what it looks like to me. So this is my life, you know, that's like my documentation of what I spent my time doing and how I value myself through an analysis of art and my own artistic philosophies. But I'll never get to see how people look at it in a museum. I'll never get to see how people study it, or if they don't, or maybe they just walk right by it. People might just walk right by it. I don't know. All my friends loved it, but that's another sad thing. Like, that's sad to me, and I'll never get to, like, did I achieve the artist's dream? Did I achieve the artist's duality of purpose? I don't know. I figure if I like looking at it so much, somebody else will. So there's a lot of music that I like that other people like. So somebody else is gonna like my painting, right? I mean, it's just correlations, right? And so I've been talking a lot longer than I thought I have. So is it worth $10 million? Am I worth that much to get to look at my painting for the rest of my life, donate it for the next 300 years to inspire young artists, and the same way that I was inspired to paint that by other great artists in modern times. Chuck Close is the reason why I painted that, and it was an interpretation of his work and how I saw a way that I could make something I wanted to look at. That's all it is. Really, I make paintings that I want to look at, and I don't like people giving me other people's art. Why would I love other people's art. I mean, if you gave me a real Van Gogh, I would keep it and then loan it to a museum so other people could look at it. That's what I would think. So that my walls have more space, so that I can feel this need. It's a need is what it is. My old apartment, all my walls were pretty much filled up. I had posters and just other stuff. And when you don't see that empty space and think there has to be something to look at, that's one really big drive to paint and to try and leave something that is going to outlive you, is that, if it's going to be on your wall so long, it certainly gives your life purpose, that after you're gone, hopefully it can occupy space on some other wall somewhere for more people to enjoy, and hopefully as much as you enjoyed it. Because if you're just gonna put your love into something and just toss it away, why do we raise children? That doesn't make any sense, does it? And why do we love other people and love other children? Like, I've often compared my paintings to the way that I think other people feel about creating life and creating children. That to me, that is like a full conceptualization of like my brain to a physical body, something that exists, that has this essence of my life and my soul to it. And that's how we raise children, and we raise children to the bias of parents and what we believe is socially effective and acceptable. However, we are replicating ourselves. We project on our children. We look at other children and say, I don't like how that parent's raising that child. I want my child to be a little bit more silly or more funny. I want my child to be more open. I want my child to do this and to do that. And I wouldn't play guitar had my father not wanted me to learn to play guitar. Or he always wanted me to learn to play guitar, so I was predisposed to that. I was a naturally talented drummer. It took me a long time to learn guitar. And I'm mechanical with it. I am not intuitive. I'm an intuitive drummer, but I'm not. It took me a long time to develop music into a language. So music is language to me now because of how I learned to play guitar, and that I would study every note and how they went together, and I did not study music theory. I only studied music theory for composing symphonic music, symphonies and orchestral pieces and stuff. And so, like, when I listen to music, it is genuinely a language to me. And it's no different than... So I have that sensory for music, that's my ears, while painting is that language for my eyes. Food is for my mouth. I guess I don't really have one for smells. Food, I guess. Anyway, this is a long video. Is it worth $10 million? Of course it is, as long as it lasts. If it lasts another 300 years, and we prolong as a society, think of all the other people I potentially have to inspire to not just look at a masterpiece like a Van Gogh or look at the Mona Lisa and think that you can easily just be shut down, that you're not worthy of making a painting. That then all the people that I could inspire to paint something that they too love in their own language through their eyes, and all those paintings, as society grows and expands, and those paintings find walls, and more people keep creating, and we find that and bestow and hold that innocence and significance, because it's not a portrait, it's not, photorealism, but yet it still took me 3 months to paint that. And I'll never forget painting it. I'll never forget bringing it home and working on it at home and waiting to hang it up on my wall and questioning the yellow on the side or the orange in the eye that's fading now. It's cheap acrylic paint, and it's slightly decaying and just changing in the best fucking way that I love that painting.